where he might be headed next.
Build credit with an average increase of 47 points and a credit builder plan that can put you in control. Start building credit today.
#1 streaming news.
First thing in the morning, at home, on your way to work, with your coffee, wherever you are. Get the day's first news, first reports from across the world, and the morning's first buzziest stories we'll be talking about all day.
See you here first thing on ABC News Live First.
Friday nights at 9 on ABC. Meet true crime.
True murder mystery.
Shocking.
Sex, betrayal, lies. A bombshell. The greatest true crime stories.
2020. Friday nights at 9.
ABC News Live.
Because the news never stops.
David Muir, the most trusted anchor in America, the most watched anchor in America. Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir the #1 newscast in America.
Glad you're streaming with us. Well, her screams went viral as she documented this grizzly circling her and her dog. Well, now we hear from Jessie Oakes and what exactly was going through her mind at that moment. Will Reeve has it all for us.
Go away. This is the harrowing moment. A woman and her dog in Alberta, Canada, came face to face with a young grizzly bear. Now we're hearing from the woman who lived to tell the tale.
I'm like, oh my God, I'm in the pathway of this like 400-pound animal.
Jessie Oakes was walking her Dutch Shepherd Skokie around her camp just before 6 a.m. on Wednesday when she spotted this bear from a distance coming towards her. The bear began circling them and taking a clear interest in Skokie.
Initially, I didn't see any sign of aggression at all. I actually remained pretty calm. My main concern was just keeping my dog calm as well. I didn't want him freaking out and potentially aggravating the situation.
The bear at times charging at Skokie and standing on its hind legs, while Jessie screamed and yelled and did everything she could to scare the grizzly away.
Hey! Hey! Stop! Stop it! Go away!
I started getting really worried, like his claws They're massive, and it just takes one swipe, and then, yeah, catastrophe would happen.
Finally, the grizzly retreating.
Everything just slowed down. I was thinking solely on the present. My life's on the line right now. What do I do to survive this situation?
Leaving Jesse and Skokie shaken but unharmed.
Go! Bears and wolves and coyotes, they're competitors. So the bear may be looking at the dog as a threat in that way, and that's what the bear seemed to be most interested in. So to her credit, she didn't turn and run. However, bear spray in that situation could have eliminated that threat very quickly.
Hey! No! No! Hey!
What's up, man?
The generally accepted best practice if and when you come face to face with a grizzly is to play dead. If it's brown, lay down. If it's black, fight back. But in this case, experts say Jessie did the right thing, trying to scare it off because Skokie the dog was there with her.
Well, the news never stops, neither do we. You can find us anywhere you stream live news. And if you're on the go, we're on the ABC News app and abcnews.com. I'm Kira Phillips. So glad you're with us. A lot more news up next. Don't go far.
Any pizza, any toppings, just $9.99, even stuffed crust.
Absolute magic!
Watching the ABC News Live.
Born in the USA, landmark parting decisions from the Supreme Court. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips from our nation's capital. It's Tuesday, June 30th. Right now on ABC News Live, justices affirm birthright citizenship in a major defeat to President Trump, but hand him wins on transgender athletes in girls' sports and campaign finance. We'll take you to the highest court in the land. 6 days since the world shook, and 6 days of hoping against hope. The search for survivors continues after those deadly quakes in Venezuela. The West was already a tinderbox, but now dry and whipping winds are fueling infernos. We are tracking wildfires gripping several states this hour and trying to beat the rap. The only man charged in Tupac's murder tries to get his confession tossed, and how notorious B.I.G. could be a factor in the case decades later. ABC News Live starts right now. Well, if you're born in America, you are American. But if you're a transgender girl who wants to play in women's sports and school, you may be benched. The Supreme Court handing President Trump another mixed bag today on its final day of this term. The justices issuing a massive blow to Trump after they rejected his efforts to end birthright citizenship by executive order. On the other hand, justices upheld a ban on trans athletes in girls' sports, rejecting a claim that these bans violate the Equal Protection Clause. The High Court also striking down term limits on how much political parties can spend in coordination with candidates, a major shift in campaign finance law. Let's break it all down with our legal contributor, James Sample. So this is pretty clear in the Constitution. So why did multiple justices actually vote against it, James?
That's a really good question, Kira. Justice Samuel Alito, writing in dissent, said that the Supreme Court majority today makes, in his words, a serious mistake. That being said, that is a remarkable thing for him to say, because this is a rule that has been consistent, has never, ever not been the rule since 1868, which is when the 14th Amendment was ratified. 30 years after that, in 1898, in a case called Won Kim Ark, the Supreme Court affirmed the notion of birthright citizenship, and today the court even drew on principles that predated the United States entirely, the principle of jus soli, i.e. birth comes from soil, not from hereditary parents or anything of that sort. So it is a victory for those immigrant families and individuals who are in favor of birthright citizenship. For those who are opposed, including the president, it is a significant defeat. The only real route for them to go to continue to challenge this would be via a constitutional amendment process, which was always really the case. The notion that you could rewrite the 14th Amendment with the stroke of an executive pen was rather dramatic all along.
Well, the Department of Justice also says that they respect the court's opinion, but are committed to tackling illegal birth tourism schemes. So what can they do here?
They can absolutely do that, and in a sense that reinforces the propriety of the majority's opinion, at least in my view, which is to say that the federal government, and certainly the executive branch, has an extraordinarily important role to play with respect to immigration, with respect to regulating visas and things of that nature. So they absolutely have the ability to address the very, statistically speaking, small problem of birthright citizenship tourism, a number that most studies that have looked at that point out is less than 1% of the birthright citizenship cases that are granted, but certainly is one where, yes, they do have the authority to address that.
Well, does today's decision on transgender athletes, set up a potential nationwide ban down the line, you think?
It's certainly possible. For now, the decision, Kira, is that the states that have the bans can have the bans, and that the states that don't have transgender athlete bans don't have to have bans. But certainly there is the possibility of a must-ban question coming down the pike later, potentially as soon as next year.
James Sample, appreciate you. So our next guest spends much of her career defending immigrants' rights in America. Matter of fact, she will tell you your parents could be undocumented immigrants who fled here with nothing but the clothes on your back, or your ancestors could have come on the Mayflower. But you and I are exactly the same as U.S. citizens. Cecilia Wang, the National Legal Director at the ACLU, argued that in front of the Supreme Court, and today she won. Cecilia, the Supreme Court deciding this just 4 days before the country's 250th birthday. Why are you so proud to be an American today?
Well, I'm proud to be an American and to be a civil rights lawyer who fought alongside our brave clients, hundreds of thousands of American families who would have been deeply harmed by President Trump's executive order, and the millions of Americans who've always understood, at least since the ratification of the 14th Amendment, that everyone born here on American soil is a citizen alike, just as you said, Kira.
We're born here in the U.S. to non-citizen parents that were here on student visas. How did your experience and your family's story help you with your arguments that you made at the Supreme Court?
Well, going into this argument, of course, you couldn't have a higher stakes case in the Supreme Court. And I had so many people, loved ones and friends, as well as total strangers, who would come up to me and say, my parents are immigrants. I'm like you, a 14th Amendment citizen, and we're with you. I heard from so many people whose ancestors, it could be a great-great-grandfather, a great-great-grandmother, at that back in history of the family, of the country. All of us who have an immigrant background could trace our ancestry back to someone who was the first American. Nothing could be more profoundly a part of the American fabric of our society and our government than birthright citizenship. And so going into this argument, going into this case, standing up alongside all of my colleagues and co-counsel on this team and our clients, all of the winds of history and the spirit of the 14th Amendment and Reconstruction were with us, and we saw that prevail today with the Supreme Court.
Well, you know, Trump has already insinuated that he'd move forward with ending birthright citizenship with or without the justices. How would you fight those efforts, Cecilia?
Look, you know, the president has already staked out a claim that he's going to go ahead and try to get a constitutional amendment. But as commentators have already said, including on this program, that is not going to succeed. The Supreme Court decided this issue definitively in 1898, and again today reaffirmed that the 14th Amendment means that everyone born here is a citizen alike. That can only be changed by constitutional amendment, and that effort will fail because, as I said, millions upon millions of Americans today, a majority of the American public, loves birthright citizenship. We believe in it as a cornerstone of who we are as a nation.
What would it mean if birthright citizenship went away?
It would profoundly change who we are as a nation. The founders of this country and the framers of the 14th Amendment after the Civil War believed that we should have equality in this country. After the Civil War, the framers of the 14th Amendment wanted to dismantle and uproot any kind of caste distinctions in the United States of America. So as we go into the holiday weekend and the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, I think we can all breathe a sigh of relief and cherish this cornerstone of American life. If birthright citizenship were to end, our country would be unrecognizable. We would go to a system where your parents' status determines whether you're a citizen of the United States. As I said, Americans of all stripes, from right to left, of all races and backgrounds, believe in the promise of birthright citizenship and in the promise of equality that it gives all of us. Free Black Americans did not fight for citizenship only for themselves. They fought against caste distinctions in citizenship, and they won. And that is what we enjoy today as Americans.
Cecilia Wang, congratulations, and thanks for joining me today. Big day for you, I know.
Let's go.
Thank you so much, Kira.
So now to the extreme weather conditions challenging firefighters in Colorado right now. Severely dry terrain and relentless winds are fanning those flames. Homes like this, nestled in the forest, are surrounded.